The maitre d' barely gave me a look before shaking his head. I am sorry, ma'am, but there isn't any reservation under your name. For I was taken aback, momentarily at a loss. That couldn't be right. I was here for dinner with my husband's family. They should have arrived already. Offering a polite yet firm smile, he continued, I double-checked, and there's a reservation for 6 under Morgan Sinclair, but I'm afraid. For at that moment, a sharp, familiar voice chimed in, dripping with amusement. Claire, for Morgan drawled, quickly drawing my attention to her presence. She stood nearby, adorned in her usual chic designer attire, her platinum hair flawlessly styled. Behind her, my husband Adam was awkwardly seated, his eyes flitting between us, offering no intervention. His sisters, Charlotte and Emma, were sharing whispers, evidently amused by the scene. My stomach nodded, but I composed myself, refusing to show how it affected me. I don't understand, for I declared, maintaining a calm demeanor. Morgan too's grin widened. Sweetheart, I didn't actually expect you would show up, for she laughed, as though amused by a joke. This dinner is for family only. This kind of place is simply beyond your reach, don't you agree? Perhaps a budget venue would suit you better. For Charlotte stifled her laughter with her wine glass, while Emma avoided meeting my eyes. Adam remained silent, tightly clutching his fork. Humiliation blanketed me as others around began noticing, their curious stares probing the unfolding drama. The realization dawned on me that Morgan had orchestrated this. For years, she made it clear I wasn't good enough for their world. Without old money, prestigious school backgrounds, or the privilege of their societal standing, I was always an outsider. From our engagement, Morgan made pointed remarks about my simple preferences, conveniently excluded me from family events, and showered Adam with lavish gifts while giving me empty smiles. But tonight was the most daring. She strategically planned their sumptuous dinner at one of the city's poshest restaurants, ensuring I'd be left at the entrance, like an unwelcome guest. However, betrayal didn't bring me down. Something within shifted, and I offered Morgan a slow smile that wavered her confidence for a fleeting moment. Turning to the maitre d', I requested smoothly, could you ask the owner to come by? For as if the owner would appear just because you asked, for Morgan scoffed. Meeting her gaze evenly, I declared, yes, because the owner knows me well. And shortly, my dear mother-in-law was about to learn an impactful lesson. Although Morgan's smirk didn't falter, I detected a slight flicker of doubt in her eyes. Years of treating me as an outsider culminated in tonight's public humiliation in front of my husband, his sisters, and other observing patrons. The air thickened with anticipation, yet I stood my ground, unwilling to let her triumph. The maitre d' hesitated, unsure, but before responding, a deep voice disrupted the tension. Claire, for turning, I saw Daniel Leone, the restaurant's owner, approach, an embodiment of refined elegance with salt and pepper hair, a well-tailored suit, and the kind of poise expected from an owner of a top-tier restaurant. Morgan's eyes slightly widened, acknowledging his warm greeting towards me. Daniel, for I greeted back, spreading my smile wider. It's been a while. For his gaze drifted to Morgan, Adam, and his sisters before returning to me. Indeed, what brings you here tonight? For I gestured to the table with my in-laws, whose faces shifted from amusement to uncertainty. Seems I was inadvertently omitted from their reservation, for I said lightly. Daniel's eyes darkened slightly, understanding the subtext, yet he quickly resumed a polite smile. We can't have that, for he replied. Can a seat just be made available? For Morgan scoffed, arms crossed. Reserving spots last minute? Impossible here. For Daniel's expression stayed unreadable. You recorrect, Mrs. Sinclair. Typically, we don't cater to walk-ins, for he agreed. Disappointment nudged me, but he shifted his attention to the maitre d'. However, Claire isn't an impromptu guest, she's family. For as the word echoed, the table tensed. Charlotte nearly dropped her glass, Emma's eyes shifted between us in disbelief, while Adam's grip on his cutlery hardened, yet he remained silent. Morgan, refusing to concede, chuckled disdainfully. To family? Oh, this is priceless, for she derisively remarked. Claire, my son's wife, has no ties to, I began, but Morgan narrowed her eyes as I smoothly interrupted, saying, Daniel, and I go way back. Leaning forward just a bit, I spoke loud enough for nearby patrons to overhear. Before I married Adam, I worked in fine dining. Daniel was my mentor then. A stunned silence descended at the table. Morgan was likely about to protest when Daniel interjected with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Claire isn't just any former employee, he stated calmly. She trained under me right out of culinary school. I personally taught her everything she knows about hospitality and high-end service. She was one of my best students. Morgan's jaw clenched, realizing her plan was unraveling. Despite her efforts to undermine me, I had a past she knew nothing about, a past now undoing her stunt. But I wasn't finished. I turned to the maitre d', still awkwardly at his podium. I assume Daniel's word is enough to secure me a seat? The maitre d' straightened quickly. Of course, Miss Claire. I'll have a table prepared immediately. Morgan's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. Ridiculous, she muttered. She gets special treatment because she earned it. Daniel chuckled as the maitre d' motioned for a waiter to set a place next to Adam. I feigned surprise. Seems there's ample room after all. Morgan's hands balled into fists on the tablecloth. Absurd, I whispered to her. What's absurd is you thought you could humiliate me and get away with it. Her nostrils flared. Dramatic, she accused. I shrugged. Enjoying dinner with my family, isn't that what you wanted? Before she could reply, Daniel assured me, I'll have the chef prepare something special for you, Claire. Morgan almost choked. Something special? On the house, of course, Daniel confirmed. Morgan was livid, but helpless. Adam, silent, reached for his drink, but something flickered in his eyes. Relief, embarrassment, or shame? I wasn't certain. But this dinner was far from over, and Morgan Sinclair was about to regret presuming I could be so easily dismissed. The waiter presented a polished silver plate with an elegant amuse, all courtesy of Daniel. Morgan's expression was pure, unfiltered rage. This looks incredible, I murmured, savoring the taste and the tense silence. Charlotte and Emma exchanged uneasy glances. Adam fixated on his wine glass, as if searching for answers. Morgan, however, wasn't ready to concede. She took a deliberate sip of wine before placing the glass down forcefully. I suppose someone like you would know people in hospitality, she said, forcing a smile. I raised an eyebrow. Hospitality? She waved her hand, feigning politeness. Service industries, waiting tables, kitchen work. Not the careers we're used to in this family. There it was, the true motive behind her charade. It wasn't just about excluding me, it was about reducing me to my roots, reminding me I was an outsider. You say that like it's a negative, I replied evenly. Morgan seemed surprised, expecting me to be rattled, but I remained unfazed. I meant adjusting to a family like ours must have been challenging, she continued with faux sweetness, but her words dripped with condescension. Adam still said nothing. I turned to him, noticing how he avoided my gaze. Suddenly it hit me. It wasn't only Morgan's cruelty. It was about his silence. This wasn't the first time Morgan had tried to humiliate me. At our wedding when she forgot to invite my family to the rehearsal dinner, at Christmas with the cookbook, simple recipes for the clueless wife, at last summer's snide remark about my fortune and Adam taking a chance on me. Each time, Adam had let it slide. Each time, I convinced myself it wasn't worth the conflict. But this was different. This was orchestrated humiliation, and he let it happen. I placed my wine glass down carefully, then leaned forward, resting my elbows. Evenly, my voice smooth, I called Morgan's name and asked her on the table if she knew the difference between us. Her eyes showed curiosity, yet I smiled. I articulated how everything I've worked for. Silence engulfed, and Morgan's face turned cold. Excuse me? She retorted, but I remained steadfast because she knew what I'd said. Charlotte, beside her mother, showed tension, and Emma seemed to suppress laughter by pressing her lips. Morgan sneered. Are you saying I haven't earned what I own? I left it unanswered intentionally, then clarified before she could counter with arrogance. I neither married into nor inherited fortune. I crafted my success. Nevertheless, gesturing around, we dine here, the owner respecting us equally. Morgan's grip on her napkin tightened while Charlotte and Emma stopped finding amusement. Adam appeared as though wishing to vanish. For the first time meeting Morgan, her guarded demeanor flickered with something rare, a fear of realizing her perception was flawed. She had for so long constructed a narrative painting me as inferior, a gold digger clinging to her son. Yet, the reality dawned. I was unbreakable. Casual again, I picked my fork, cutting into my meal. Oh, and Morgan, she exhaled sharply, clearly incensed by my commandeering dialogue. What? She snapped. Deliberately smiling, I advised, be wary of whom you underestimate, enjoying my food slowly, for they might ascend above you. The tension was palpable. Morgan's composed facade was cracking, her grip on her wine glass, so tense it might break. Adam seemed ready to disappear into his chair, while Charlotte and Emma exchanged nervous glances, wondering if intervention was needed. But I felt assured of my place, and it was evident in Morgan's look when her usual air of superiority crumbled, if only fleetingly. After a deep breath, Morgan set her glass down purposefully. I see, she acknowledged smoothly, masking any emotion. Credit is due, CLA. Rising beyond your roots is commendable. Calmly sipping wine, I denied her reaction. Tell me, she continued, a sugary smile forming, why, if you're so self-reliant, does my son finance your lifestyle? A pause followed as Charlotte gasped, Emma shifted awkwardly, and Adam recoiled. Keenly, Morgan perceived the table's focus now on me for an answer. I placed my glass down, wondering aloud. What do you suggest by that? Morgan leaned in, her mockery thinly veiled. Darling, isn't my son the reason you manage that charming boutique? You pretend to work for fun, yet self-sufficiency is your mantra. Her smugness in full force. You're living off my son's support. There lay her ace, aiming to shatter my composure, to belittle me beyond repair. While Adam avoided eye contact and his sisters held their breath for my collapse, I laughed loudly and genuinely. Morgan's smirk faltered. What's amusing? She asked, bewildered, as I returned the napkin to the table, laughter lingering. Morgan, your disconnect astounds me. Narrowing her eyes, she demanded, excuse me? I gestured at Adam, maintaining calm. You assume he supports me? Raising a brow. That's adorable. A choking sound escaped Charlotte, Emma's shock evident, and Adam paled. Morgan's smile vanished instantly. Clarify, she demanded. I shook my head slightly. She still treated Adam like a child, thinking him my savior from an impoverished past. But this isn't our reality. Morgan tensed. Isn't the irony apparent? I noted. His ventures, investments, many are backed by my finances. Silence descended shockingly. Morgan's eyes, wide with her world shifting. Impossible, she murmured. Smiling, but coldly now, Adam didn't climb alone, I maintained. As he embarked on investment, I provided the capital. I returned to sipping my wine and I looked at the glass again. Meanwhile, Morgan's fingers twitched. That's not possible, Morgan uttered. I just shrugged. Believe what you wish. But the truth is your son's success leans heavily on my investments, my strategies, and my support. Both Charlotte and Emma glanced at Adam for confirmation, yet Adam remained wordless, still frozen. I shook my head. You think humiliating me by painting me as some dependent housewife will work? That's ludicrous because, in fact, Morgan, Adam needs me way more than I ever needed him. Morgan's face flushed a deep shade of red. I leaned back, arms crossed. You've spent years attempting to make me feel like I don't belong. Yet I've been the one maintaining not only this marriage, but by extension, your beloved family name. Emma seemed on the verge of fainting, while Charlotte was utterly speechless. Adam finally found his voice. Claire, he murmured, maybe we should. I cut him off with a firm hand. No, Adam, I stated firmly. You don't get to, maybe we should me right now, not after sitting there silently while your mother tried to humiliate me. At that moment, Morgan realized for the first time that her son, her golden boy, was utterly spineless, and she suddenly seemed less proud, seeing him as beneath her expectations. It was a delightful role reversal. Standing up, I smoothed my dress. I think I'm done here. Morgan's nostrils flared. You can't just. I turned to Daniel, who had been observing from a respectful distance. Daniel, it was lovely seeing you, and thanks for the hospitality, I said. Daniel nodded, amused. Always a pleasure, Claire. I then looked at Adam. Are you coming? He hesitated, looking between me and his mother. And in that moment, I knew what he would do. Adam never chose me before, and wasn't about to start then. Morgan seemed victorious. I smiled back, because what she didn't realize was I had already made my choice, and soon enough she'd regret ever putting me in my place. Adam didn't follow, but I hadn't expected him to. Stepping outside, the cool night air brushed my skin, but I barely felt it. My mind was sharp and clear. This dinner was a long overdue wake-up call, a revelation years in the making. It was time to act. Pulling out my phone, my fingers steady, I typed a message. We're moving forward. Start the process first thing tomorrow. Within seconds, a response appeared. Understood. You'll have the first draft of the divorce settlement by noon. I exhaled slowly, staring at the word divorce. It didn't scare me. What scared me was realizing how long I ignored the truth, that Adam never sided with me, and I had been alone in my marriage. But not anymore. This night pushed me to act, and Morgan was unaware of how thoroughly I was about to disrupt the life she tried so hard to control. I reached home before Adam, giving me just enough time to do what I needed to do. Heading to the home office Adam used for investments, I opened the safe. The passcode was unchanged, a mistake. Inside were all financial documents, bank statements, investment portfolios, business agreements, and most importantly, the contract tying his most lucrative investment to my initial fund. I picked it up, scanning the familiar legal terms. This document proved I was the financial backbone of his empire. Morgan believed her son was the great businessman, yet without me, he was nothing. I quickly photographed the contract, replacing it exactly as I found it. I didn't need to take it when I had what I needed. Next, I went to the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and began packing, not in anger or haste, but in clarity. This wasn't emotional. It was a calculated departure. By the time Adam walked in, I sat on the couch, suitcase beside me, waiting. He paused at the entrance, unsure if he entered the right home. Claire, he uttered. I tilted my head. Took you long enough. His eyes landed on the suitcase, breath catching. What are you doing? Calmly, smoothly, I stood, while Adam's mouth moved but produced no sound. You made your choice, Adam, I said. Back at the restaurant when your mother humiliated me, you just sat there. His jaw tightened. I was trying to keep the peace. I laughed. Peace, Adam? Your mother planned this whole dinner to embarrass me. She left me out on purpose, insulted me, made me feel like I didn't belong. I stepped closer, noting how he shrank under my gaze. You let her, I continued, just like always. He rubbed his neck, flustered. It's complicated, Claire, you know how she is. I let out a breath. No, Adam, it's simple. You're weak. Claire looked at Adam, her frustration evident. You've let your mother influence how you've treated me throughout our entire marriage, she said, her voice steady. I've been patient, Adam. I gave you numerous chances, but tonight I understood your true nature. Adam swallowed, trying to maintain his composure. Claire, let's discuss this, he pleaded. She sighed, shaking her head. That's the issue, Adam. There's nothing left to say. With determination, Claire picked up her suitcase and moved past him. As she approached the door, Adam's voice turned grave. If you think you'll leave this marriage with half of everything, you're mistaken, he warned. Claire paused, then turned to face him with a slight smile. Oh, Adam, you should really read your own contracts more carefully, she replied, watching confusion flick across his face. What? He stammered. She continued. Without me, you wouldn't have half of what you own. Remember, I financed your investments, and I've got all the paperwork to prove it. Adam's face turned pale, realization dawning upon him. I let you use my money, she said, stepping closer and lowering her voice. But now I want it back. As Adam absorbed her words, he staggered back, the situation hitting him hard. He believed he could intimidate her, but he was mistaken. Frozen, Adam stood in the doorway, watching his perceived control slip away. He opened his mouth to speak, but Claire didn't allow him the chance. I'll be at the penthouse, she announced, adjusting her bag. Adam's confusion deepened. What penthouse? He asked. The one you think you own, Claire clarified, smiling slightly. She watched his confusion turn into horror. The downtown penthouse? He inquired shakily. Yes, she replied with composure. My lawyer checked the ownership documents today. It never belonged to you. Adam's anger flared. You wouldn't dare, he challenged. I already have, she said, pulling an envelope from her bag and tossing it onto the counter. As Adam opened it, his hands shook, reading the document that confirmed her ownership of 51% of his investment firm. In disbelief, his voice turned shallow. That's impossible, he murmured. Claire shrugged. Not really, she said coolly. Remember, I was the initial investor. I never transferred ownership. You just assumed I did. As panic set in for Adam, Claire watched with an inner calm. You can't just take this from me, he pleaded. I'm not taking anything, Claire responded. It was always mine. Adam gripped the counter. The man who once let his mother belittle Claire now stood powerless. Why? He asked, confusion evident. Because, Claire responded with newfound certainty. I finally see my worth. And with that, Claire left the house for the last time. A month later, legs crossed in the penthouse, she sipped champagne as her attorney slid the final divorce papers toward her. It's official, the attorney said. You're free. Claire exhaled, tracing her fingers over the document. The whirlwind legal battle had been swift and decisive. Adam tried to resist, stormed into meetings, and made threats, but the evidence of her majority share soon silenced him. His mother, Morgan, attempted to meddle, but Claire dismissed her, wanting nothing further to do with Adam's family. With a serene smile, Claire lifted her champagne glass, savoring her hard-won freedom. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was Adam. Can we talk? He messaged, a hint of desperation evident. Claire sent a short reply. About what? Adam hesitated before responding. I just don't know what to do. Claire shook her head, typing back a final message. That's not my problem anymore, Claire wrote. Then, she blocked his number, finally choosing herself over Adam, embracing the power in her newfound independence.